Hi, everybody. I'm Bob Marone for Westchester Talk Radio. Once again, we're with our friends from Hightower Westchester. Today, we're here with Peter Lang, Managing Director and Partner at Hightower Westchester. Today's topic, helping your children take their first financial steps as a young adult. Good to see you, Peter.
Good to see you too, Bob. Thanks for having us again. So I'm going to relate this topic really to how my wife and I, helped our children, take their first financial steps. Our daughters are now both in their teens. So like many parents, we started when they were young, giving them allowance, and that allowance was generally tied to some chores around the house, although there was no opt-out in the chores. So if they said, well, Dad, we really don't want to take out the garbage today, you can keep your allowance, that was never the option. They were taking out that garbage regardless. And so we started paying them allowance, on a weekly basis. And then when they were old enough, when they had accumulated some money, probably when they were 6 or 7 years of age, we took them to the bank down the street from us that we use, and we opened up savings account for them. And I made sure that they were there, that they experienced it, that they brought their own, the money, the wad of singles that they had in their bank, in their piggy bank at home, and brought it to the teller and filled out the deposit slip and handed the money over the counter. I wanted them to have that tangible experience. I thought that was really important to help understand money. Today it's, we don't get that tangible experience because everything is kind of done on an app on your phone. And so you miss that. And I think it instills an important lesson, in my opinion.
Okay, so this really was a learning experience with you to teach your kids about money.
Yeah, it was. We also made it clear to them, the other thing that we really tried to do with the money that we gave them as allowance or that they earned in other ways, that it was really their money, and how they chose to spend it, we would do our best not to judge how they were spending it.
Wow. So how did that work out?
I think pretty well.
Hmm.
They clearly made some mistakes along the way, but I think that they learned and they got the benefit of learning on their own. And a couple of years ago, I had my older daughter actually write a blog that's actually on our website about needs versus wants. And she has some, pretty clear memories in the blog, which I think were really interesting, which I think helped show me that what we did so far has worked out pretty well for her.
What were some of the next steps that you took, Peter?
So when my older daughter was probably in middle school, probably 7th, 8th grade, she wanted a debit card. And at first I kind of let it slide, and she persisted. She's pretty persistent. And so then finally we did go to our bank, and we got her what they offer, these kind of child debit cards, so to speak. So I was obviously the co-signer on the card. And the good thing about a debit card versus a credit card is, the debit card only has so much money on it. There's only so much money in that account that's backing the debit card. It's not like a credit card that if you lose it, some nefarious person can spend, thousands of dollars before they're caught. At most, the debit card probably didn't have more than $100 or $200 on it. So the loss was relatively limited. And, I think she really wanted it to use it at school, to, at the vending machines. And I think it's a thing because most of her friends already had one. So I think she just didn't want to feel kind of left out. And I made my daughter, download the bank app onto her phone so she could track the spending, so she could pay attention to it. And I also told her that her savings account, could be linked to the debit card so that if she wanted to move additional money that she could. And it was interesting at the time, she didn't want to take that level of responsibility. She said, Dad, do you mind doing that? So if I do need extra money, I'm going to have to ask you to move the money. And I said, sure, that was fine. And I really took a lot of time to explain how the debit card would work. And again, with my other daughter, we did the same exact thing, opened the savings account at about the same time. We gave her a debit card probably when she was probably more in high school. And now I simply use, instead of giving them cash allowance, I transfer their allowance, on the debit card. It's like an auto debit from my checking account to their debit cards. So it never kind of gets forgotten.
Was this a regular debit card or one geared toward children with perks and stuff?
It basically is just a regular debit card, but it is geared towards kids. It's specifically, marketed, quote unquote, by the bank that we use, who I'm not naming. geared towards kids, but it's not one of these, it's a traditional bank. It's not one of these, online banks. And I know there are all different types of online, debit cards and stuff that are geared to kids. I tried to avoid those because, again, I went back in my mind to having tangible, tangible money handing over to the teller, and I wanted them to have that experience. So I'm not saying that those other debit cards out there aren't worthy. It just wasn't what we wanted to do for our children. And then when my older daughter, was in high school and she spent a summer away from us, I at that point got her a credit card linked to our accounts, an Amex card linked to our accounts. They allow you to have, to give a minor a card. It's linked to your account. I simply wanted her, God forbid she really had a big expense that she needed, something happened. I wanted her to have the security that she would have my credit card, so to speak, and that she could charge it. And we laid out some parameters of what she could use it for and not use it for. And I said, look, if in doubt, just use the credit card and we can always settle up at a later time. And it's never been an issue.
Anything else you want to add to this? Anything about your younger daughter?
I would say for my younger daughter, we did very much the same thing. I think it seemed to work very well for my older daughter. And so my younger daughter, we basically did the same thing, the savings accounts, the debit card, and just, again, giving them the sense of independence. And, my older daughter, who's now in college, I guess a year ago when she came to college, she wanted to get Venmo. I didn't really understand Venmo very well, but she explained it to me and it made sense. And so, I would like to say I helped her open the Venmo account, but I think it was the opposite way around. She helped me understand Venmo, and I just kind of literally stared over her shoulder while she opened the Venmo account so I could learn about it. And as my daughter told me recently, I asked her a little bit more about this. I guess the younger kids, they don't really like to carry around cash the way you and I do, right?
Nope.
So, and she goes, now that she's up in college, she goes to the farmer's market or something like that. And, if something costs $15.20, she doesn't necessarily mind, if she were to hand over a $20 bill and get the 4 singles back in return, but she doesn't want the 80 cents. So to her, she just doesn't want the nickels and dimes. So with Venmo, it makes it easy. You give somebody exactly the $15.20 and you get back, you don't have to deal with any change. And, she told me a lot of the smaller vendors use it. And I know she uses it a lot when she and her friends go out to dinner. They'll split the bill and then they'll pay each other back on Venmo in one way, shape, or form. So, I think she really likes the flexibility. And again, she doesn't probably hardly ever goes to an ATM machine to get cash. She simply just uses Venmo.
I'll just share this with you. My grandson's off at college, and he taught me how to use and send him money via Zelle. So they understand these systems. Boy, oh boy.
Yep.
Now, I'm sure there are a lot of parents out there, Peter, who will benefit from hearing how you approach this with your daughters. I really do. This was some really good advice.
Thanks, Bob. I think the last little tidbit I'll leave you with is I think we all have to realize it's okay to let your kids make some money mistakes. We all learn from, we always tell our kids, hey, you learn from your mistakes. You spell something wrong on the test, you make a calculation error on your math test wrong, you learn from your mistakes. But sometimes we get really afraid to let them make a money mistake. I think it's important to let them make a money mistake just as important it is for them to make a spelling mistake on a test. It's how they're going to learn. And if they make a bad money mistake now with 20 or 30 or 50 or even $100, in the scope of things, to you and I, it probably doesn't mean a lot, but the $20 mistake that they make will stick with them for a long time, and they will learn from that mistake. And that's the goal of helping educate our kids, let them learn from their mistakes. So money is just one more thing they have to learn about.
Well, this was really good. This was excellent wisdom, and I would encourage all the parents out there to listen to this podcast more than once. I think you'll find it very helpful. Peter, thank you so much.
Thanks, Bob. It's been a pleasure.
Take care. Good to be with you again.
Hightower Westchester is a group of investment professionals registered with Hightower Securities LLC, member FINRA and SIPC, and with Hightower Advisors LLC, a registered investment advisor with the SEC. Securities are offered through Hightower Securities LLC. Advisory services are offered through Hightower Advisors LLC. This is not an offer to buy or sell securities. No investment process is free of risk, and there is no guarantee that the investment process or the investment opportunities referenced herein will be profitable. Past performance is not indicative of current or future performance and is not a guarantee. The investment opportunities referenced herein may not be suitable for all investors. All data and information referenced herein are from sources believed to be reliable. Any opinions, news, research, analyses, prices, or other information contained in this research is provided as a general market commentary. It does not constitute investment advice. Hightower Westchester and Hightower shall not in any way be liable for claims and make no expressed or implied representations or warranties as to the accuracy or completeness of the data and other information, or for statements or errors contained in or omissions from the obtained data and information referenced herein. The data and information are provided as of the date referenced. Such data and information are subject to change without notice. This podcast was created for informational purposes only. The opinions expressed are solely those of Hightower Westchester and do not represent those of Hightower Advisors LLC or any of its affiliates. Hightower Advisors do not provide tax or legal advice. This material was not intended or written to be used or presented to any entity as tax advice or tax information. Tax laws vary based on the client's individual circumstances and can change at any time without notice. Clients are urged to consult their tax or legal advisor before establishing a retirement plan.